Oh, hi there. I'm cowboy reader Rex Hooper, and I love Western novels. I love Western movies too, and that's mostly what I talk about on this channel. The thing about movies is they're visual. And the thing about Westerns is they're full of action. You know, you can see the horses and the firearms. You can see the landscapes, the scenery. And you can see those great costumes too. That's why they lend well to the world of cinema. But books have advantages too. Books take longer to read. And with all those pages, you get a little bit more depth. So the characters could be richer. Sometimes the story could be more complex and therefore more rewarding in the end as well. So let's talk about the best in the West. My top 5 Western novels. At number 5 for my greatest Western novels is The Virginian, written by Owen, Wister, and released in 1902. Some historians say that this was maybe one of the first Western novels there ever was. And well, one of the first, one of the best. It's a great novel. One of the things that's interesting about the fact that it's so old means that it was mythologizing the Old West while it was still kind of ongoing. Okay, the novel's set in the 1800s, or late 1800s, but even by 1902, the cowboy life was still active. And that's what this novel is about. The original man with no name is the Virginian, whose name is never mentioned in the text. And for me, I take a lot from the book because of the stories of cowboying and fighting off Native Americans and life on the frontier. But at the heart of the novel, it's a romance between him and some pretty young Eastern thing. She's educated, she's a school teacher. She initially thinks this cowboy's a bit too rough and ready for her, but like all women, she's seduced by the cowboy charm. The antagonist of the story is Trampas, and we first meet Trampas when the Virginian and Trampas are gambling together. Of course, Trampas, he does the terrible crime of insulting the Virginian, calls him a son of a bitch. And the Virginian keeps his head, stays cool, and says, "When you call me that, smile." One of my favorite parts of the book. One of the great joys of reading a Western novel is imagining the movie of that story playing out in your head. Imagining how you would cast it, how you would direct it yourself, and seeing it play out in your imagination. Well, let's play the game with me now. How would we cast, how would we direct some of these novels? Well, for me, The Virginian, well, I think that would be best directed by someone like Chloe Zhao, who directed The Rider, another good Western movie. With a lot of emphasis on the landscape and the scenery. It's a very romantic novel, so a romantic setting would be really good. And who would play the Virginian? Well, I reckon Matthew McConaughey would play a great Virginian. When a man ain't got no ideas of his own, he ought to be kind of careful who he borrows them from. My number 4 is The Sun by Philipp Meyer, a 2013 novel. 2013, it comes pretty late for being one of the greatest Western novels ever. Well, it really is great. And even though it comes over 100 years later than The Virginian, it's still absolutely fantastic and deserves a place on my list. The Sun tells the story of a family, the McCulloch family, and specifically different generations in time. There's 3 narrators, Eli McCulloch, then his son Peter McCulloch, and then his great-granddaughter Jeannie McCulloch. What the novel is about the conquest of America itself, about the Anglos moving in and stealing the land off the Indians. Of course, how it not being even that simple because different tribes of Indians took it off other tribes of Indians for as long as there's been land. There's been people fighting over it, which is kind of the point of the novel. My favorite part of the novel is the story of Eli McCulloch, based in part on the real-life events of an Anglo child that was captured by Comanches and raised as one of their own. Here's a good quote from The Sun. "Maybe this was the main difference between the whites and the Comanches. which was the whites were willing to trade all their freedom to live longer and eat better, and the Comanches were not willing to trade any of it. The Sun is such a great novel that I don't know how you would adapt it. I can't think of any specific directors or actors that would make it work, but I don't know, maybe it could work. It's such a great story. It is long and complex and in-depth, and I guess all these things are what make it a great novel. So if you could think of any good actors that would play well in these roles, let me know in the comments. Or are some books just not meant to be adapted? The entire history of humanity is marked by a single, inexorable movement, from animal instinct towards rational thought, from inborn behavior towards acquired knowledge. A half-grown panther abandoned in the wilderness will grow up to be a perfectly normal panther. But a half-grown child, similarly abandoned, will grow up into an unrecognizable savage, unfit for normal society. Yet, there are those who insist the opposite, that we are creatures of instinct, like wolves. My number 3 greatest Western novel of all time is A Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Lonesome Dove was released in 1985, and what a story. It tells the tale of two aging Texas Rangers who decide rather than live out their easy years down in Texas, they're going to move a herd of cattle, the 1,000 or so miles up north, to try and find Montana. But what is maybe really about? It's about old age, and maybe trying to look for one last adventure in your life. The trail up north takes these rangers, they test their friendship, they encounter an awful lot of death, and some tricky moral decisions along the way. It has everything you want from a Western novel, full of action and intrigue, twists and turns, and my golly, some very rich and entertaining characters. Larry McMurtry weaves quite a yarn, and because we care so much about these characters, we care what happens to them. So all the action is super intense, because we like the characters. We want them to live. We want them to make it. And spoiler alert, not all of them do. My favorite character in Lonesome Dove is Augustus McCrae. One of the reasons why he's my favorite is because of all of his killer lines, like this one. If you want one thing too much, it's likely to be a disappointment. The healthy way is to learn to like the everyday things, like soft beds and buttermilk and feisty gentlemen. Lonesome Dove was adapted into a movie. It starred Robert Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones. And actually, the casting is pretty perfect. It's a great adaptation. I wouldn't fault that at all. But hey, Hollywood's remaking everything. They should remake Lonesome Dove. Just more of that story would be great. Another great line from Augustus that maybe sums up some of the message of the whole story. It ain't dying that I'm talking about, it's living. I doubt it matters where you die, but it matters where you live. Number 2 of my greatest Western novels ever is The Sisters Brothers by Patrick DeWitt. This novel is an absolute blast. I love it so much. I've read it twice. Once to myself and once out loud to my wife. Because I loved it so much, I wanted to share the story with her. It is a darkly comic fable. There's elements of magic in the story, but it's not fantastical. It all feels like it could be real in a kind of strange way. It tells the story of two guns for hire, the sisters brothers, Charlie and Eli, and about their journey to track down the gold prospector, Herman Kermit Worm, and the strange adventures and characters that they meet towards meeting Herman Kermit Worm. every different character they meet, and each new adventure is episodic. It's an odyssey. It's strange, it's funny, and it's moving as well. I love the characters in this. The main protagonist is the younger brother Eli. He's not your typical gun for hire. He's sensitive, he's caring, and quite regretful of his life as a killer. But my favorite character, and maybe the most important character, the character that the crux of the whole story lays on, is the fat and useless horse, Tub. Here's Eli describing Tub, his new horse. Tub was a healthy enough animal, but would have been better suited to some other, less ambitious owner. He was portly and low-backed, and could not travel more than 50 miles in a day. I was often forced to whip him, which some men do not mind doing, and which, in fact, some enjoy doing, but which I do not like to do. And afterwards he, Tub, believed me cruel and thought to himself, sad life. Sad life. The Sisters Brothers was adapted into a movie. I saw that movie and, to be honest with you, I didn't rate it too highly. Not even a terrible movie, I don't think. I just loved the novel so much. I read the book first and I thought of all the amazing ways this story could be told. Of course, it had to be directed by the Coen brothers. They're the only ones that really fit that kind of comic, dark aspect to it. But the Coen brothers didn't direct it. And, I don't know, it seemed like a lot of the actors' choices, actors I like, Joaquin Phoenix and John C. Reilly, they just didn't seem to feel right for the roles, or at least not the ones I had in my head. So, yeah, it wasn't an adaptation I liked. Now, how would I adapt Sisters Brothers? Well, like I said, I'd have the Coen brothers direct. You know the Coen brothers from the True Grit, or from the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And I think they would do a great version of Sisters Brothers. And who would I cast as the two Sisters Brothers? Well, I think for the older brother, Eli, I think Jamie Foxx of Django Unchained would be good. He's got a good evil face and would play a good, kind of cruel, ruthless cowboy. And for the younger brother, I think the actor Daniel Kaluuya. And you'll know him from the neo-western Nope. He was also in the Jordan Peele film Get Out as well. Great actor. And I think he has the sensitivity that would pull off Eli perfectly. I lay in the dark thinking about the difficulties of family. How crazy and crooked the stories of a bloodline can be. Okay, let's recap my top 5. At number 5, it was The Virginian. At number 4, The Son. Number 3, Lonesome Dove. Number 2, The Sisters Brothers. And number 1, here it comes, folks. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. My number 1 greatest Western novel of all time, Blood Meridian. Blood Meridian, or The Evening's Redness in the West, was released in 1985, same year as Lonesome Dove. And quite a different tale, this one. Why is this the greatest Western novel? Well, because it's one of the greatest novels in American literature. And Cormac McCarthy is one of the greatest American writers of all time. Disagree with me? Let me know in the comments. But I think it's true. This novel is dark and brutal, quite often miserable. Not a lot of lightness in the whole story. The plot is hard to follow. The characters are all completely unlikable. So why is it still compelling? Because of the beautiful poetic writing. It tells the story of the 1850s scalp hunters and the real-life Glanton gang who went round scalping Native Americans for the money that they would get from the government. And after they couldn't find enough Native Americans, they went around scalping Mexicans and then just anybody else they could find that would pass for having Native American hair. It's brutal, and torturous, and mysterious. Why I love it? I love it because of the beautiful way it's written. It's like one enormous poem. It makes several references to and draws comparisons to John Milton's Paradise Lost. And because of all the horrible acts that are committed throughout the story, it almost acts as a kind of justification for man's exile from paradise, which is what Paradise Lost is about. The central protagonist is the 14-year-old The Kid and his journey. Some of the other compelling characters are Toadvine, which is a great name for a character, and Judge Holden. Judge Holden, one of the great antagonists of a story, or is he an antagonist? Is he the devil himself? Something going on with this. The Judge, as they call him. A man who seems to speak every language and is learned in almost every subject, and yet is more evil than anything I could ever dream up. I don't necessarily have a favorite part of this novel. So much of it seems to flow one thing over the other, like the winds that roll in from the dust bowl that it's set in. I remember scenes and snatches, almost like a dream. I love the ending as well. I feel like the novel could have gone on forever. Part of it stays with me forever. The Judge, being terrifying and learned, has some killer lines. Here's a quote from the book. "Even in this world more things exist without our knowledge than with it, and the order in creation which you see is that which you have put there, like a string in a maze, so that you shall not lose your way. For existence has its own order, and that no man's mind can compass, that mind itself being but a fact among others." Could you ever possibly make Blood Meridian into a movie? Could it be a great Western movie up there with The Searchers? I don't know. But maybe. As far as I know, several people have tried to make an adaptation of Blood Meridian. One of the difficulties is because of the brutality and violence in the novel. It would be hard to pass any kind of censorship to get it on screen. But some of the great violence in cinema is not shown. I don't know. There's ways around it. And if anyone could do it, my money is on the great director Robert Eggers. Robert Eggers has directed a few films, my favorite being The Lighthouse. And I feel with his aesthetic, especially the one that he used, making The Lighthouse, would be perfect for Blood Meridian. Because it's such a dreamy, poetic book, and yet cinema itself can be dreamy and poetic. What it does with visuals and time and music. I'm still hopeful for a really great movie out of Blood Meridian. War was always here. Before man was, war waited for him. The ultimate trade awaits its ultimate practitioner. Well, there you have it, folks. That's my top 5 Western novels. But what did I miss? There's a lot of books out there. I've certainly not read them all. So you tell me. Give me some recommendations. What are your top 5? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you think I've made some grave error missing out your favorite, then let me know. Heck, maybe I've just not read it yet. Again, leave it in the comments section below. If you've enjoyed any part of this video or got any good recommendations for your next read, then do us a solid and help me out. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and also you can support this channel by checking out my record, Frontera USA, available to buy on the Spotify and on the Bandcamp too, for anyone who enjoys Western content. Alright folks, I'm going to get back to my book, and I'll see y'all later on down the trail.
Face, an expanding waste is all time.